Ulonga tabati yada to ye kuma daifa. Inu to ye ko je love bipa. Oba tala, oba takutakun. Zongo eshu, ogun oya osun. Kini sheshe, tan she nile yo. O jalo jara.
Lafayette, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. We're in the middle of the marathon, so we got the mother in the building. We got Baba Khepra Ptah in the building. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle, man, because the marathon continues. Shout out to the tribe who was able to make it to the album release party for 100, man. Salute the 100, man. He got a dope new album that just dropped. He blessed us, Ashe Streets, with this 4 of the pre-release songs that he dropped for us today, on top of, I think he did like 4 of his other songs that was out. So gratitude to 100, gratitude to the tribe. And with that being said, Mama Wunam Nicky Love and Baba Khepra Ptah. Peace and blessings. What's good, family?
Peace and blessings, good brother.
Yeah, man. I appreciate y'all. So listen, I'm ready to get this thing cracking. So I appreciate both of y'all for coming through to make it do what it do, man, and to pour into the tribe.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
Ashe.
It's always a pleasure, brother.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So
you know we got to do the ancestor call.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna hop off and go ahead and give it to you so you can do it.
All right, y'all ready?
Yes, ma'am. All right, we're gonna hop off. All right.
All right, ancestors known and unknown, mothers and fathers of our blood, our spirit and our destiny. We call upon you tonight. Walk with us as we speak truth. Stand with us as we reveal wisdom. Guide every word, every thought, and every breath. May this space be protected, enlightened, and empowered. May our voices carry our strength, and may the message reach those who need it the most. Ashe.
Ashe. Oh. Yes, sir. My bad. I was trying to refill my little water mug before I came back on. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. So
that's why
it's a lot.
Right here.
Listen, I don't like sharing brands, so I like to share my little cup. So I put it in my little cup.
Okay.
Share my little brand. Cause look, now they cut the check now. Y'all want to sponsor something? Boy, look, I put that thing all over.
Right.
Yeah, that's true too. You're right.
I ain't giving them nothing. Like my boy Hunter said, don't give me 99. I can't take it. It's 100 or nothing.
That's right.
Yeah,
Start
man.
making them pay.
Yeah, that's real, man, for real. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But I definitely appreciate it. And look, it's a lot going on, man. It's a whole lot. And as it always is, so I feel like both of y'all got your own lane that nobody can jump in and, and do and teach the way that y'all do with the, the magical wonders of the mind that y'all have and the gifts that y'all have. So like, this is a first, to bring us 3 together, man. So it's like when me and Baba Ptah had the last one, I'm like, yo, it'd be dope if we all, I don't know if it was you or me, one of us, I think it might have been you. Was it you that said it, Baba? One of us said it. But it was like
yeah. It's kind of like we all been saying this at the same time,
Hey.
and we, Wunam, she had also mentioned it that it would be good for us all to get together. So I think we were just all touching on the same frequency right there.
Hey.
By the way, we're all spiritually connected at the top, anyways.
Facts, yes, sir. So we're here now. So listen, it's a lot, man. So I don't know which one of y'all want to, dive in first and get into this thing. We're talking about transcendence, but the world needs it, we need it, the tribe needs it, and it's a lot that we got to get into and discuss. So I'm ready to get to it.
For sure.
So which one we want to hit first? Do we want to talk about the subconscious mind and ending the trance, or do we want to get into like working towards the eliminating the trauma, that kind of I feel like plays a role into us being able to be captured into this kind of like trance to, for the transcendence.
Let's go with the first subject.
Okay.
About the subconscious mind.
Yes, sir.
Or should I say the subconscious?
Get it.
Okay, Gab and Seb or SEVI. The Kemetic word SEVI is the word meaning bondage. So when you look at the hieroglyph of SEVI, you're looking at a man with his hands tied behind his back and he's on his knees. Bondage, that's SEVI. All right. Well, let's look at what keeps us in this state. Now, people are often controlled by their subconscious mind. Because the subconscious is so powerful, right? Some would say more powerful than the conscious mind. it carries unexamined memories, fears, or inherited beliefs. And it becomes a kind of internal autopilot that keeps the person in a trance without them realizing it. So the subconscious, it stores everything: childhood messages, ancestral trauma, cultural conditioning, survival patterns, and emotional imprints. When these patterns go unchallenged, they run the person's life from the background. Kind of like when you have a virus on your phone or a virus on your computer, you got layers and layers of crap on top of the original program until the computer shuts down. So this is why someone can consciously want success, but subconsciously sabotage themselves. Consciously want love, but subconsciously fear intimacy. And consciously want peace, but subconsciously recreate chaos over and over again. Now, subconscious is not malicious, however. It is simply repeating what is learned, even if what was learned was born from pain, oppression, and fear. So this is the trance, living from old programming instead of present consciousness. One of the things I used to love to say all the time is that you have the past, the present, and the future. The past is way back when. The future is yet to come. The present is now. When you reverse the word now, you have won. It is the present. It is the gift of life. So it's the same trance that Du Bois described in his book about the soul of Black folks that they had us read during Black History Month, or at least talked about it, but never graced the essence of what he was trying to say. Okay, it's the trance Ifá talks about a clouded ori, in the same trance state that deals with what psychologists describe as afterlife of trauma. So when the subconscious is full of inherited wounds, internalized narratives, or survival-based habits, it keeps the person looping through the same emotional patterns, the same self-talk, the same limitations. And transcendence begins when a person becomes aware of the trance, and when they recognize that the inner voice is not the soul speaking, but the past echoing. And ending the trance means ending the trance brings light into the subconscious, clearing old patterns and letting the true self come about. Not the inherited programming, okay? So when we look at the word transcendence, it is the end of trance density, or transcendence is ending the trance. Okay? The trance that we are in. That's transcendence. So it's about ending the constant trance trauma states in which we find ourselves in. Transcendence, ending the trance of density, is a way to look at how we can become whole. Bringing back the pieces of Asar, the broken members that were scattered. When you bring the members back together, you are remembering. Same concept with the shattered calabash in the Yoruba tradition. The same concept falls true with what the Christian Bible talks about the body of Christ being Israel and Israelites being scattered abroad and so on, eventually being brought back. The same metaphor and the same intent. Okay? So you have density, which is not just the physical matter. It is forgetfulness, heaviness, disconnection, and identification with the surface of reality. And a transcendence is not to escape from the world. It is more or less a waking up from the trance of limitation. So in Kemet, the trance is called the Nebab, or the clouded heart. Okay? In Ifa, we talk about a clouded or a wounded consciousness, a wounded Okan. The Dogon talks about the incomplete vibration, right, of the walking people, the sleepwalking people. Even Elijah Muhammad talked about being resurrected from a mental death. So in the Kemetic tradition, the soul, we call that the cool, the shiny one, only when it breaks the trance of earthly illusion, right? The trance is believing that the body is the whole self. In this case, forgetting your cosmic origin, living without Ma'at, and basically embracing Esfit and being ruled by fear, ego, chaos. And transcendence is the moment that the heart becomes light again. The trance dissolves and the light body activates and becomes the Khu. In the book of Coming Forth by Day, it talks about how the Khus are in the heavens and they feed on the Shechem. And the Shechem is the energy, right? It's kind of like the prana and the chi that we find throughout the universe. So an illuminated being feeds on a totally different food source. It transcends the poison that we're given and fed mentally, physically, and spiritually. In the Ifa, we talk about how humans fall into trance and they forget their origin when they come to the birth canal. So this is why we have to realign with our consciousness, with the Ori. When the head forgets itself, there becomes confusion, according to Rumala. So the trance is living without Iwa, character, ignoring your destiny and acting from an ego based consciousness into the spirit and losing the connection to the ancestors or your Egun, aka Egungun. So transcendence is the return to coolness. See, like I said before, in the tradition of Yoruba, it's about being cool. See, keeping a cool head. So clarity, alignment, all that. This is the alignment of Ori, how we remember ourselves and bringing back the Sheddar Calabash and living in a state of Apere, which they call the perfect state in the Yoruba tradition. The Dogons say that humans exist in a lower vibration until they awaken the inner light, and that connects them to what we call Nomo, or in the star realms, connecting you back to Septet, aka Sirius. This is when you become serious about living and about connecting, and serious about your spirituality, serious about your divine origin. You see? So the trance is living in the unfinished state. It's forgetting the cosmic blueprint and being trapped on the surface realm. And transcendence is the completion of the vibration, the activation of the inner star, and the return of your cosmic frequency. And this is literally the end of trance density. You see, so we all agreed to come in a physical form. When you were in the heavenly realm, you agreed to take on the physical body of weight, mass, volume, and density. And you also agreed to explore what we call the limitations of time. That's the Sicker energy, according to the Meta Netter. And for those who are familiar with Ram Nephra Min's teachings, the Zulu, who call themselves the people of heaven, I'm a Zulu, meaning people of the heavens. We got Kudomutra, who teaches that humanity is in their collective trance and a sleep placed upon the people from long ago. Then, we forgot our heavenly origins. In the Yoruba, we talk about the Orun being our original state. Orun means both heaven and source, okay? Losing your inner light, living without ancestral guidance, and being ruled by fear. False evidence appearing real, right? And transcendence is when the inner lightning rises. That's that Shango energy. That's that lightning bolt. The ancestors speak again, and the person becomes a vessel of truth. So,
Baba, I hate to interrupt, but the only reason I want to double dutch in real quickly is because on the last, the last podcast I did, man, I promise you, he struck like 3 lightning bolts. The first one, it happened in the very beginning. It stopped me. I'm like, yo, did y'all see that? Like, I don't know if Brian, he said he didn't see it. But man, listen, but one of the guests, I guess some of the guests was like here in Florida where I'm at, and they was like, yo, yeah, we saw it. A few people said that. I'm talking about it. The blinds are completely closed, and it still came through. I'm like, yo, that's crazy. But listen. So, but before we go further, I wanted to ask Wunam something because you said a lot. But I wanted to ask this because this is something that I know both of y'all could hit. But with her and her gift, when it comes to us and being in the trance, right, Wunam, how much is the ancestor or ancestral trauma, like how much does that play a role in those of us, who come after? Like, say for example, like I'm born and I came from my moms and my pops, but if like my moms and my pops was passed down some ancestral trauma from their parents, does that affect me? And if it does, how? Because there's a client that I got to holler at you off air about that I'm probably gonna have to connect you with because of ancestral trauma. So how does that ancestral trauma play into us who, we have the genes and the genetics of our parents and our grandparents and our, our elders and ancestors? How does that play into us being kind of trapped in this trance that Baba Ptah was just explaining just now?
Honestly speaking, I mean, there's a lot of trauma that does take place when you're doing ancestral readings. You will actually begin to see, as you do the ancestral readings, the trauma that takes place in a lot of families, right? And one of the things we have to realize remember, we always say you are my ancestor, your ancestor is you, and you're the ancestor. So you carry that blood, okay? And it starts with the blood. The blood is what? The life source, right? So pretty much, you're talking about that energy being tapped, transferred down into that bloodline, right? Now, honestly speaking, I'm going to say this: the ages over time and over the ages, the DNA was shut down. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. Some trauma is transferred, but not a lot. This is my spiritual, study of how trauma is being passed down through the DNA. And I'm going to say some of it is passed down, some of it's not. Because you can have somebody that was totally this way, right? And in this lifetime, they have nothing to do what happened in that lifetime. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to say all of it is actually passed down and is passed on to us now where we're traumatized. Just like, for instance, slavery, so-called slavery. Okay. Right. So they'll say, well, you think that way because at the time our ancestors was enslaved, you know what I mean? They had those thoughts. So you're thinking that way because you share the same DNA as your ancestors. But that's not the case all the time. That's not the case all the time, because we got to remember your DNA transforms. Right? It transforms. And when it transforms, you're not going to take on all of that trauma from that ancestor that may have dealt with so-called slavery. You understand what I mean? So I'm not going to say it totally affects us as big as we think it does. Okay?
Gotcha.
Because we are, look at the you got different ages now, the Gen X, the Gen. I think totally different than my mother thought in the 60s. I might have took on a little bit of the thought, but it's like my mindset about this world and things going is totally different. So I'm not going to say we take on all the trauma of our ancestors.
Gotcha.
And I think we need to understand that the DNA goes through a transformation as well.
Gotcha.
So we're not actually remembering some of the things that our ancestors have been through. So that's how I feel about that.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate it. And then this one, I'm gonna bring a question up real quick, because Baba, I'm gonna ask you this because I feel like that's something you're gonna take and run and score a touchdown with. Why do they always talk about shout out to Vanessa Sanders? I hope I'm saying that right, family. But shout out to Vanessa Sanders. She says, why do they always talk about these wars in the heavens?
That's a very interesting topic. Okay, because there's different layers, there's different levels of it.
Yeah.
Now, wars in the heavens could also be wars in your consciousness and wars in your head, right? But there's also understanding what's happening on the higher planes, before it comes into the lower planes. Now, the Yoruba tradition teaches that if you are not attuned, or sometimes you may not remember that before you came to Earth, you had certain things that got lost on the way down, right? So you ran into something on the way from the higher planes or the lower planes. That's one aspect of it. Another thing is dealing with the fact that there is the higher level of war taking place on the etheric plane before you come into the physical. And then there's the teachings of the ancient astronaut theory about before there was physical life on Earth, before humans were seated here, they talk about how there was a war in the heavens and that we were actually brought to Earth in quarantine, right? So all that kind of like feels or ties into what we're talking about, because the Yoruba teaches that humans are pretty much quarantined. According to Ifa, it says that the people begin to cry out to Olodumare of why is it that we're stuck between heaven and earth? Why is it that we cannot leave? Because basically when you die, you keep on coming back. There's like you're in a cycle and rotation. And Olodumare answers that when we have reached the perfect state of peri, then we'll be able to leave this world. But until humans collectively reach the perfect state, they'll continue to come on back and be stuck here. Now, here's the thing. It says that once we reach the perfect state, you will not have to worry about no wars, no violence, no sickness, and even throws Eshu up in there. Not that Eshu is bad, but because Eshu deals in duality. So once you get to the perfect state, you have transcended what is known as duality. And this goes and touches upon a lot of Eastern teachings too. Now, of course, we hear about the angelic wars that are taking place in the heavenly plane. We're talking about the zodiacal concepts of when Scorpion rises and stings Orion. Orion goes down. It's not seen, during a short period. It then comes back up later on in the year. That's the death and resurrection of Orion. That's the death and resurrection of Osar. And notice how Orion got the three stars connected with the three pyramids on the belt area, because those are areas, the pyramids, the construct is where it's supposed to transform humans into gods and send them back into Orion, where they go and visit, like it says in the pyramid text about Venus. Venus or Unas is given the authority to transcend and go back to the heavenly realm from which he came from. That is, or should we say, our destiny. Some say our divine origin is Sirius, and Earth is the place in which we're stopping. Eventually, our divine destiny is to go back to Orion. Look at the word Orion. It got the Orion. Your Ori is on then. You see what I mean? because when you tap into your Ori, you're tapping into your divine consciousness. That's why I mentioned the origin, which is how the Ori generates your existence. The origin, the originator. You see what I mean? Orion, Ori, on. You turn on your Ori, and then you remember that you are the light. And this goes and connects with a lot of your Middle Eastern teachings. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that. And the reason why is because it's coming up about the war that's taking place in Iraq, right? I mean, Iran.
So, Baba, I hate to cut your wisdom, but because you said something that spoke to me, and I apologize. But when you said the deity of Awanas, right? Is that the same deity that's connected to the Sirius astrological deity as well? Is that deity, or is it a different deity?
Well, it's actually an ancestor. He was a king. However, you know, but they call him Munas, they call him Venus. But when you open up that book, the pyramid text, that's the pharaoh that they're talking about. They also call him the eater of the Neteru. It says that he eats the Neteru, right? Meaning that he's taking on their essences.
Is that the one with a wolf or a dog?
What's that now?
Is that the deity with the face of the wolf or the dog?
No, he's just he was a human being.
The human. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a human. He was a human pharaoh, but he transformed into a god. So the whole thing is in the pyramid text is when you have lived the righteous life of Ma'at, right? And you go before those 42 judges and it goes along with the halls of Ma'at. When your heart is basically in alignment with the feather, because your heart is not considered heavy, then you can transcend because you're not full of desires that's keeping you coming back here. That's the heaviness of the heart. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that, you know, or I desire to come back and become rich or something. You still have the desire, the heaviness in your heart. So therefore, you got to come on back. Heart is thrown to Amit, which means the heart eater, the eater of the soul, and you come on right back. See?
Sure.
So another thing too, they talk about the boat of Ra taking the souls up into the Duat. You see what I mean? And transferring the souls to the heavenly realms. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about the mother plane. Now, we could look that in two ways. See, back in 1975, after, you know, Rana Time of the Nation of Islam had a temporary dissolvement. He had a lot of people waiting on top of the roofs, literally for the mother plane. You see what I mean? But the mother plane is also a state of awareness. He also spoke about mental resurrection. So when you sit at the heart of a very specific tradition going back to maybe the 30s, it's talking about the idea of liberation. It's not only political or economic, but also psychological. So it's kind of spiritual and cosmological at the same time. When you look beneath the surface, right, mother plane is not just a craft, right? It's a symbol of transcendence and a metaphor rising above the density of fear, trauma, and mental capacity, and or should I say, mental captivity, and being able to be one and one with yourself. That's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad back in the day, he talked about accept your own and be yourself. Well, in order for you to be yourself, you have to become integrated. You have to gather your pieces back together into oneness. So we talk about the higher dimension of consciousness. We talk about return to divine intelligence, and we talk about a vehicle of awakening and uplifting. That's known also as the Merkaba. Everyone around us has an energetic field called a Merkaba, and all you have to do is go into trance and meditation, and you can transcend various aspects of reality. You see what I mean? So there's a literal aspect, there's a metaphorical aspect, and also there's ancient teachings that talk about vehicles and crafts that were built, okay? Some of these are called Vimanas, and it's talking about these crafts were flown in the ancient world. You see, everything that we're living now, we had experienced at some time before in either this reality or in a separate timeline. Nothing is really new. It does become renewed. So we have had setbacks, we've had destruction of the world in which we come back, and then we have to start all over again, or should I say we had a reset. All right, so this is in your ancient text. This is not something that they just now started talking about. However, all of those ages, from your golden age, your silver age, your bronze age, and your iron age, which is not just talking about Hinduism, but it's also talked about in the cosmology of the Igbo, and it's also touched upon indirectly with the cosmology of the Congo, talking about the 4 stages of life. You're dealing with constant rebirth, death, renewal, and eventually transcendence into different spheres of reality. So going back to this idea of the mother plane, talked about mental resurrection. Mental resurrection is the process of clearing the subconscious, all that inherited trauma, dissolving internalized oppression. So you got to basically shut down that inner slave master that was put in you, okay, from not just the little bit of ancestral stuff that is passed on genetically, but also what was passed on through doctrine, being indoctrinated, right? Whether it's in the church or the education system, whether it's through propaganda and so on. You got to do the work to clean that out of you. So you want to break the trance of negative self-talk. A lot of times, and I want to touch upon this a little bit later, a lot of times we have negative self-talk. We manifest these things around us, like people are rude to us, right? We wonder why's the lady at the cashier rude to me? Then you go down to the office of where you work and the boss is rude and everybody's acting weird. But you have to ask yourself, maybe all these people are acting weird and I'm having all this bad luck because of my own internal dialogue. See? And a lot of times your internal dialogue will manifest very similar things around you based on how you think and feel about yourself. You will begin to see things around you based on your outlook of the world. So, you know,
the law of attraction. It works both ways, positive and negative.
Right?
Indeed.
And that goes back to say that we are the creator of each of our own worlds, right? And then we have the one big brain, right? That is all of us together. You know, so you have your little brain here, and then you got a big brain, which determines how you see the outside world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Facts. Facts.
Yeah, you know, that's a real thing. Because you know, me and you hit this before about like how I think the way it came up is we were talking about. Well, I was talking about. You were talking about divination or something along those lines, but I was talking about how when people receive a consultation or divination and they receive the message or they receive the do this and that, if they don't do the work, the internal work, the sacrifice of self by sacrificing whatever it is to, you know, saying eliminate whatever it was that Ifa or whatever, you know, the oracle gave them, how does that affect, you know what I'm saying, how things kind of unfold going forward after receiving that message. But I feel like everything you just said, when you talk about how we speak, we really activate the law of attraction in a positive or a negative way, depending upon the thoughts and the internal talk and the voice, you know, the things that we say out loud too, right? So it's like we attract that to us, whether it's negative or positive, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And, you know, and the thing about it, we have to ask ourselves, how did we get to all this negative thinking? You know, how did it spread around our people? We know about what they did to us from an institutional level, you know, the institution of slavery and so on. But for Black people, the greatest wound of slavery was not only physical, but it was psychological dismemberment. Okay, so it's the breaking up of your inner Usir. It's the splitting up of your calabash. So you had this forced forgetting. You had this identity erasure, right? You know, so now there's talk about getting rid of, some people have talked about getting rid of Black History Month. And okay, you might want to look at Black History Life, okay? Because the thing about it is that it's not up to them to teach us about our history. They're not going to teach you about your true history. They're going to give you the ass and elbows of your history. Yeah. So you got to go and get the truth. You got to look within yourself. You got to do the research, and you also got to pass it on to your offspring.
Yes.
But guess what? Wait. Hold on, brother Khepra. You know, and I know. You know, and I know. We ain't got past nothing because it's in our DNA. You see, and I'm gonna share this because I know, as a real spiritual healer, a lot of times I wouldn't go outside of myself. I didn't care how many books they put out. I don't care what you tell me. I'm not going to listen to what anybody else is telling me. So guess what? I got my now watch this. I got my ancestral sign set up, right? And I got all the ancient ancestors, right? And I'll sit in front of there and I'll burn my frankincense and give them some meat and red beer. And I'll say, tell me what I need to know, right? And then they'll share stuff with me, right? So like they told me that at one time, Kemet used to be a stone city, right? And that they use high-tech lasers to, you know, do the pyramids, to do the Sphinx, right? So now this is information I'm getting from going into meditation and tapping into what you call that? What did you call that, Brother Ptah?
The
Tapping
Merkaba?
into that who,
The
The
Merkaba.
Merkaba?
The Merkaba. Yeah.
right? Okay, so tapping into that. So I'm sitting back and I'm just taking all this information and they're just downloading in my DNA and they're telling me this and telling me that. And then guess what happens? I'm on the History Channel. And the History Channel says, oh, they found a tomb down there with some high-tech lasers, right? Now, mind you, they showed me this now while I'm going into the meditation. And what they told me too is that even if they were to destroy every mega monolith, every pyramid, every ancient Kemetic, deity or whatever you want to call it, that it's still in our DNA.
Yeah. That's
It's still
real.
in our DNA. I walked in the land here of Georgia. And when I walked the land of Georgia, I looked around and I said, this was part of Africa. I said, this land was part of Africa. And then I start seeing the pyramids. I start seeing different, pharaohs. And sure enough, what happened again? They came up on the news. The Emory University students were doing excavation, and they found a city in Georgia that looked just like Cairo, with all the big pyramids and not the pyramids, they had the pharaohs. And they do
Artifacts.
have pyramids here, right? So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A
they,
lot of them.
they
There's
put it
more
on the
miles in the
news.
Americas than there are in Africa, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. So, but here they actually found the same pharaohs that you see in Cairo. They found them here in Georgia.
Yeah.
They put it on the news. They took it off this quick, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Spirit said, okay, you onto something now. So then I watched PBS. Oh, Georgia was a direct puzzle connection to North Africa. So I'm coming to this land for the first time, right? And I'm saying this to say that they could have done all they did. They could have destroyed everything they want, but it is in our DNA to know that we are ancient ones.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's real, man. And I want to, man, that it's so powerful because I just had like a very similar experience to what you're talking about. Literally, last week on the 19th, I was preparing a little ebook that I just wrote about the ancestors, how to worship, how to how to do daily devotion to the ancestors, right? And I'm sitting here, where I'm sitting at, I literally got a picture of Malcolm, and he's sitting directly in front of me. I mean, directly in front of me. And he's sitting here with his glasses on. He's sitting like this. I'm gonna share the picture, but I was recording footage to go along with the book that I wrote because I wanted like his essence, his energy. I wanted to invoke that. And when I did it, I gave him an offering. I put some water there. I gave him a candle. And I just sat there. I lit an incense and I let it burn. I let the smoke burn and rise up. And Spirit told me to crack the blinds so the sun can shine a little bit. So it was so dope because as the incense was raising up, the candle was lit, and I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, and I'm just sitting there. I'm kind of like in a candle or fire meditation. And then I'm sitting there, and so I'm doing some research. I'll be damned if upon my research to do the little book, I came across this deity named Kawak. Baba Ptah, you might even know about this because I wouldn't be surprised, but either one of y'all, but it's Kawak, Caac, and then it could be spelled also Kawk if I'm not mistaken. Long story short, this deity is a deity of prominence, a deity that's connected to thunder and lightning. On top of this deity's number is 19. He's connected to community work, to service, to revolutionary work. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy because the day that this shit happened was on February 19th. And I'm just sitting here looking at it. And Wunam, you know this because we did a commemoration for Malcolm last year on y'all's birthday, which is May 19th. So I'm like, yo, this is nuts. So I'm sitting here doing this. I'm like, yo, this is unbelievable. So I took notes. I copy and pasted things. I got links. I got all kind of research because I got to do some more deep diving for this deity to see like, yo, this is not a coincidence that this energy came to me while I'm sitting here in a freedom fighter meditation with Malcolm on the 19th of February. This deity is connected to the 19th. And then I'll be damned. Shout out to OJ Yemi, the elder. I got on a call with her and she gave me my cosmic signature, a cosmic birth certificate, to where it connects me with my kin number back to the Mayan calendar. And when she told me about that, it was so powerful. I had to take a nap before I could read all the information she gave me because it was almost like a cosmic divination, or for it'd be like almost like Itai, you know what I'm saying? Cosmically. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. But I say all that to say that wasn't even a meditation like with my eyes closed or, you know what I'm saying? Like going on. It was just me sitting here right here and just literally like meditating on the flame. And then Spirit gave me that same download, just like you, to go and look up this research where I found a deity I never heard of before in my life, but he is the equivalent of an American version of Shango from the Americas.
Okay.
I never heard that before. Someone's like, yo, this is nuts. So that's facts.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about downloads. And I agree with you, Sister Nikki. Everything you said, it doesn't contradict anything as far as my perception of memory. In fact, I call DNA the divine nature of Amenta, right?
Okay.
You know, it's the divine aspect of you that is hidden and passed down from generation to generation, or this your inner gen, right? It is the aspect of you that generates, you know, and helps life to be reborn. So when you tap into your divine nature in Amenta, you have to restore your memory. And that's how you tap into what I call the collective field. Because the idea is remembering who you are. You see what I mean? But we have to bring the fragmented parts back into oneness to have full remembrance. But remember pieces of ourselves here and there, you see? But we come into this physical realm, we come and we experience fragmentation. Now it gives you an experience and it gives you an individualized story that you can write, that you can tell. And once you come back into oneness, it's another experience. Because that's basically what we're here ultimately to experience.
Right.
Beyond that, you know, it transcends meaning beyond that. Where we strip away like the literalism, even when we talking about like some of the stories we dealt with our language. We talk about rising above trauma, fear, trance, rising into divine identity and into clarity and purpose. Right? Now, lately, a lot of all this stuff that they distract us with is meant to cause us to forget and to not tap into that divine nature. It's literally meant for us to see ourselves as victims. Like, you know, for instance, all that stuff with the Epstein files coming out, you know, all that is, to me, it's just regurgitated information. I've heard it all before. But now they've concentrated it and they're like, oh my goodness, there's this evil guy that he might still be alive and he got away with all this mess, right? And then there's the conflict between the United States, Israel, Iran, and what took place in Venezuela. I wanted to tap into that just a little bit. I just want to talk about how it's used to mess with our heads a little bit, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's mind control.
It is mind control, right? So let's put it to like a little bit of historical perspective. Back in the 50s, okay, there was this coup. There was a collapse of the U.S. There was this Iran alliance around the early 80s, maybe. I think President Carter was the president at the time. All this was unraveling all the way up until this 2015 nuclear deal. And what they did is that they created this global atmosphere where there was panic, which became a kind of trance, right? And this collective fog that keeps people reactive instead of reflective. So the media coverage, often rapid and sensational, amplifies fear by focusing on all the explosions, the threats, the Michael Bay shit in real life, you know, the worst case scenarios, while rarely offering the long historical context that explains how oil routes, strategic alliances, and repeated diplomatic failures led to this moment. So in this sense, panic is not, you know, it's not meant to have clarity. It's meant to put you back into trance, back into trance density. So this is the thing where people absorb shock without understanding the deeper forces at play. So ending the trance meaning stepping back from the fear cycle long enough to see the conflict as part of a long tangled history rather than a sudden catastrophe, which they constantly repeat and throw up in your face. So earlier, I talked a little bit about W.E.B. Du Bois with the soul of Black folks. You know, so all this touches upon psychological afterlife of slavery, ancestral trauma, you know, just a little bit. And it's something that, as Sister Nikki points out, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all tied to ancestral trauma as much as they keep on repeating the same stuff over and over again to mess with your memory. So for people of African descent, melanated people, indigenous people, whether it's the Americas, Africa, or wherever in the world, transcendence is not just a mystical accent, it is this breaking of this historical trance as well. So there's this density created by centuries of dehumanization, forced forgetting, and spiritual interruption. They have to interrupt you spiritually, hoping that you would not think to tap into your spirit. That's why they had to come create all these religions, right? To trap your spirituality in a whole bunch of rules that will regulate you to the point that you're doubting the very power that you came to this earth with and giving it to something that they created and gave to you to indirectly worship yourself while looking outside of yourself. So the Rod described this as double consciousness. And it's this painful split between how we see ourselves and how the world forces them to be seen, right? Or forces us to be seen. And that split is a trance state, a psychic fog created by oppression, where the self becomes divided, dim, and weighed down by inherited wounds. This is your heart not balancing out with the scales of Ma'at. So you have this, you have these documented scholars. I had the joy of meeting, before she was Dr. Joy Leary, also known as Dr. Joy the Gray. She wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And I remember when she came to Seattle and she spoke. And very, very beautiful spirit. But she was talking about how fear and hypervigilance, internalized shame, and survival-based behaviors can be passed through generations and shaping the nervous system and the spirit. She kind of explained that in a very, very like innovative way. You see what I mean? So it's a lovely piece of work. She talks about, there's a book she wrote about PTSD, you know, post-traumatic slave syndrome. So you can check out her work as well.
Baba, let me ask you a quick question. When you spoke about the split personality thing, right? Is that, excuse me, when you said that, all I could think about, is that something that's similar to imposter syndrome?
Well, I'd say yes, you know, because if you're not of yourself, if you're other than yourself, that has a lot to do with an inner splitting.
Yeah.
The problem is that the whole idea of the devil, right, which is live spelled backwards to get you act other than yourself and anti-life.
Yes.
Okay, so you've taken on an identity that's not even yours, but an identity that is given to you.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
because that reminds me of to me, it's like, I don't know if y'all seen the Chappelle show about the black racists. Well, he was blind, but I should say the blind racists, but he was black. So he was raised around, you know, it was a skit. To me, I feel like Dave used his genius to really like poke people, but at the same time speak truth, just like he do now. But it was a skit where the dude was blind, right? It's funny to me because I feel like he did it. I know why he did it. But the brother was blind. It was him playing the role of a blind guy. But he was adopted and he was raised by a bunch of racist ass white people. So because he can't see, he don't know he's black. So every time like he hears anything, you know what I'm saying, that has to relate to black,
I remember that.
So
I
but
remember
he can't see. So it's like, it was funny, but I still like to say though, but that's how imposter syndrome is, I feel like, is invoked. It's because if you're not prepared or you haven't like done the knowledge or knowing thyself and all that good stuff, you're conditioned by the media and all this, you know what I'm saying, stuff that they put out there, the programming. I call it subliminal seduction. So we're seducted by this, you know, subconscious programming that we're all exposed to. So if you don't take the time to learn thyself and learn your history, learn your culture and all this good stuff, then you can easily be coerced and coerced into feeling the same way the oppressor, you know what I'm saying, programmed or created a design for the strategy to program us. So then you start to hate yourself. You know, and there's a lot of us who do that. Like, there's a lot of us who are in alignment with that program. So it's black, racist ass black people who have a white or a racist ass mindset because they've been programmed or seduced by the subliminal seductive programming. Right?
Indeed.
So my question is, so how is it our people are seduced, right? But the white people are seduced. What's the difference? Come on, y'all.
Oh, trust me, they
somebody
know.
tell me.
They are too.
There's the dude.
Yeah, that's why the ones that are that way because they've been ingrained with it for generations. The same way we've been ingrained with the bullshit of, you know, slavery and all this other stuff for generations. Because at the end of the day, if you look at what's happening now, right? I know what we see on TV, But I don't see all the shit, the MAGA and all that. I don't see that in real life. And I'm not saying it ain't there. It's there. But I don't see it the way it's put on us, because most of these little white niggas, they want to listen to hip hop. They got black friends, like, you know what I'm saying? They sitting there doing the little dance with it, whatever it's called. You know what I'm saying? Like that's been happening since I was in school. You know what I'm saying? Like I had white homeboys, but I rock with them because they didn't try to act black. They was just real and true to who they were. I don't care who or what color you are. If you trying to be something else, I don't rock with you, because I fuck with real people, period. But if you white and you cool, you know what I'm saying, and you ain't trying to act like me, I can rock with you long as, you know what I'm saying, I feel like you got some loyalty or you just a real person. But don't come around trying to talk like me, walk like me, you know what I'm saying, dress like, don't do that. And you fronting, don't do that, because that's not gonna work. You know what I'm saying? Just like a brother that try to act like them, I don't want nothing to do with you either. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I see that it's not what the program is trying to make us to believe it is, because a lot of them, they not on that. The younger generations, you know, I feel like the elder ones, they dying out anyway, so it don't matter. But I'm just saying all to say that, yes, I feel like it works both ways. I feel like we can be programmed to think, you know, like the blind racist and be racist, or, you know, subconscious against ourselves, as well as they are programmed to be racist against us too. You know what I'm saying? Because the program is the program. And that's just my personal opinion.
Definitely. And one of the things is that when you study hypnosis, when a person who is a hypnotherapist or a person who practices hypnosis, they actually hypnotize themselves in order to hypnotize their patient. In other words, the so-called slave master have to hypnotize themselves in order to hypnotize us. They cannot move. If they got their foot on someone's neck, they can't move. They got to stay there. Another thing that we have to remember, a lot of whites are victims. You know, you hear a lot of these whites on YouTube or whatever, social media. They're trying to say that they're suffering from reverse racism. They're saying they're being discriminated against. They're saying that they're the ones who's being shut out the game.
Baba, that you just literally, you proved my point of exactly what I'm saying. The program is the program, and it don't matter what color of skin you in, because if you fall victim to the program, you're just a victim to the program. Whether you're black and you hate white people, or you're white and you hate black people, or if you're black and you hate black people, or if you're white and you hate black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, hell, there's white people that hate white people because they, you know what I'm saying? Like, the program is the program. So I feel like regardless of what color you are, if you don't have the wherewithal to get to know you and do your studying, do your research, do your inner, you know what I'm saying, work for you to connect with the creator, it don't matter what color or none of that, because you're going to be seduced by that program. You're going to be a bot no matter what color, you know what I'm saying, race or creed or whatever, because you don't know God because you ain't trying to, or you didn't have the capacity to get to learn. Because if you learn and know thyself, I feel like that's like religion. Like people bash one culture, bash one religion, and put theirs on a pedestal like it's superior. But if you, whatever that religion is, I don't care if it's Christianity, I don't care if it's Islam, I don't care if it's Buddhism, I don't care if it's Ifa, whatever. If you are living the life truly of whatever that doctrine is, and you're living according to your God, you ain't gonna be bashing other people's, you know what I'm saying, religion. You should respect it, because at the end of the day, I don't have no problem with nobody from no religion, but just show me love and respect. I'm gonna show you love and respect. But if you come for mine, I'm gonna come for yours. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I feel like the disconnect is at.
Well, so it comes back to when we say we create our own worlds, right?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
it's sort of like I would tell people, they would come on my radio show years ago and they would tell me, well, I see Jesus and I know Jesus exists, right? And I would say, yes. I said, Jesus does exist in your world. And I said, I bet you I can tell you what Jesus looked like, right? He had long hair and he was white. And oh yeah, and that's exactly how he looked. I said, I know. I said, and you were given the image to show you, right? That's what your Jesus looked like. So I'm not mad at you, because guess what? In your world, that deity, that thing exists, right?
Yes.
In my world, it doesn't, because I wasn't given that to get, to be programmed with. You was. So I don't, I just kind of let them know it's okay. It does exist in your world, but not in mine.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir. That's fact.
And and we are programmed, and it comes back to, I said, we got to get deprogram, delete, and reprogram. But what happens is the biggest question people have, and I know, is why, how do I get deprogrammed? How do I forget that I was taught that was a slave? How do I, you understand that I am superior and not inferior? So the question would be, and I'm sure everybody would look, how do I get out of this program? And a lot of times they don't understand that your eyes are like video recorders. Everything you know outside of yourself is being recorded in your subconscious mind. So it's in your subconscious mind, which you're using, I would say 90% of, right? So the 10% of your conscious mind has not been programmed as the subconscious mind, because you're looking at the subconscious mind from your eyes with your video recorders in this world. I asked the question to somebody, what do you know that nobody else knows? Tell me.
Yeah.
Somebody tell me, what do you know that nobody else in this world knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody knows everybody knows or was told that the sky was purple, but do you really know that?
Facts. Yeah.
Do you really know that, that the water is water and it could be fire?
Yeah.
Right?
That's the same programming.
Right. And I'm saying that because people ask that question all the time. Well, how do I go? How do I know? How do I come back? And we have books. We have scholars, great scholars, right? I've had many of them on the radio show. You know that, Brother Ptah. And we've had them that teach. And I was always happy and proud of them. But the problem I have is we still are dealing with the level of programming and brainwashing in the community, in our community now, y'all. In our community, where it's like, yes, a lot of people are being spiritually awoken, but a lot of people are still programmed and brainwashed, and they don't choose to know anything else.
All right.
That's fast.
And that's part of the fog of the trauma too, and there's those internalized narratives of inferiority that they still have to get out of their system. And now we had talked about, like, even respect for other religions, like, for instance, the Black church or the church, right, in which grandma and grandpa went to. They catch the spirit, but to me that was a hoodoo ceremony, because they were tapping into something much more primordial than what the colonizer had to teach. We're talking about entering trance and almost like an Orisha Bembe, okay, rising in hoodoo power. So they're performing, a connection with ancestry. Now, to me, catching the Holy Spirit is not passing out all of, necessarily just passing out all over the floor, okay? Truly catching the Holy Spirit is opening up to a frequency and allowing your cup to be filled with that which we call the Holy Spirit. That's something that comes from the ancient ones, okay?
Right.
Now the Bible, and so on, they took some of these concepts, but when they saw us perform these things, they said, oh, wait a minute, hold up. They actually know how to get the Holy Spirit. We've been talking about it. They know how to go in a trance. They know how to heal. They know how to do what they call it transpossession and so on. You see?
Right.
So,
right.
So in this way, we're looking at something transcendental at place, and it becomes what I would call ancestral repair. Okay. So we've gone from ancestral trauma to ancestral repair. That is repairing our ancestral memory. And it's a spiritual technology for healing the wounds of history and reclaiming the brilliance that really was never really lost, like Sister Nicky pointed out. So, so there's no stopping it. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, but the thing about it, we came from a place of supreme knowledge and took physical form so we can experience limitation. We're not here as individuals to recall everything. We're basically here to, have a unique story in the tapestry of existence. So, when we have this, now this is another thing, negative internal dialogue, right? That's a form of self-imposed slavery. Because it traps the mind in a loop of limitation, fear, and inherited narratives that were never originally ours in the first place. It's the trance, right? One created by history and reinforced by society. I call her, but basically it's internalized, in various ways that cause us to be on autopilot and do things that we don't mean to do because of our core beliefs. So it's kind of like that psychological residue of those dehumanizing times that people have gone through. Now, whether or not we're born with a tabula rasa, right? That's one thing. but we're still dealing with people belief and other people's beliefs being passed down to us. And these are things in which we have to learn, and this is how our memory has to kick in. Now we have to also overcome fear, because a lot of us may remember, but we still have to overcome this fear that's causing us to not want to walk the apparent invisible bridge to liberation. When the people are told for centuries that they're inferior, dangerous, or unworthy, those messages don't just poof away like smoke. They sink into the subconscious and they shape an inner narrative.
Yeah.
So, this is that double consciousness. So the painful split between the true self and the self shaped by the gaze of an oppressive society. Over time, that gaze becomes internalized and it turns into self-doubt, hypervigilance, perfectionism, self-criticism, suspicion, where everybody around you is an agent, or, oh, well, you're an agent because we don't agree. You see, stuff like that, So we got this negative internal dialogue. Is not the authentic voice of the soul. It's the inherited voice of survival. And because we're constantly focused on this negative internal dialogue, like we mentioned earlier, we're constantly finding ourselves in a situation that reflects on how we feel about ourselves.
That's why you got to turn it off.
I want to, excuse me, and I want to double dutch in too and ask both of y'all a question in regards, because I know Wunam, it was several shows ago that you and I had that this came up, and then Baba, me and you talked about it, I want to say over the weekend, and I want to say even maybe briefly earlier today. But when it comes to, and I actually just had another conversation, I think yesterday about this, but when it comes to us as a people, right? And then, and I'm gonna even isolate it even more intentionally to narrowing it down to the healer space, right? In the community that we're all in the healer space. What do you feel like is the source of people who have this thing where they hate on other people, they gossip about other people, they negatively talk about other people, and they do malicious bullshit to other people, that are all, in the same space that we're in. I don't care if we're talking about priests, priestesses, babas, iyas, whatever. It could be healers, reikis, whatever. But what is it that people have this thing that they don't like to see other people doing anything of positivity or anything of productivity or whatever you want to call it, and they have something negative or hateful that they want to project and they want to attack with, whether it's verbally, whether they sending shit, like whatever the case may be. What do y'all both feel like, and either one of y'all can take it whenever, but what do y'all feel like the root cause to that is? And then how can someone who has clearly, at least allegedly or hopefully, has been through some sorts of training, some sorts of inner work or whatever the case may be, teaching, being a student to, a baba, yeah, whatever. How or why do people still have that kind of energy within them? And what can we do to combat that?
Go ahead, Brother Ptah.
Let me both talk. I talked about it with both of y'all. I'm asking for the people.
Okay. Basically, it's a survival mode turned inside out. Okay. It's flipped inside out, right? Now, the reason why we have these tender egos, big puffed up swollen egos, the ego is actually meant to protect you, okay, and protect your identity. But because we have been so ingrained with being in survival mode, the ego has become a reference that replaces our outlook of ourselves in the world. So we look at things from a traumatized, egoic point of view, okay, as a result of a defense mechanism that has gone awry. Because you're saying, listen, if somebody outdoes me, if somebody outshines me, somebody that looks like me outshines me, right, I'm not good enough. Remember, Frederick Douglass talked about that on the plantation, sometimes they'll have two different groups of slaves, or should I say blacks, who have been enslaved, right, fighting on who had the better slave master. Okay? A lot of us is still doing that today because, first of all, it's constantly being told to you through school, through propaganda, right? The human hearing, the human ear picks up on things 40 clicks below conscious human hearing. So a lot of things we're picking up on is stuff we're not even aware we're picking up on. You look at the movies when they show people that look like us, the main thing they show is maybe romance comedies, which subtly programs you to not take your relationship seriously. You know what I mean? Or for all throughout the 90s, they had these movies where the black person was the first one that got killed. You see what I mean?
Still happening.
So the monster would just single out the black person first, or for some strange reason, the black person was kind of like the people in the red suits on the old Star Trek shows. You knew they were going to die at some point in time. You know, you could basically have taken it for granted. And what that was doing is that was messing with our self-esteem, right? Malcolm X was talking about how you get the Negro who will brag about being the only Negro in an all-white setting because we were taught, you know, subconsciously that you have to be exceptional to our standards. You got to stand out. So when it comes to other people that look like you see them as a threat. You see them as competition, but it's in your mind, it's in your subconscious. So you begin to compete with others that look like you. And then you begin to not only challenge them, but you begin to do things like get them fired from the job. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of this has to do with our programming. Again, we have to get rid of the virus. We got to go back. There's a form of meditation when you literally sit and remember the times that you've gone through trauma. And what you got to do is that you got to tell a different story. You got to go back when you remember that you got popped in the mouth for just asking a simple question. Well, you have to go back. You have to change that story, because if it's still playing back in your mind over and over again, you're going to find difficulty in expressing yourself, answering simple questions. When somebody asks you a question, you're all over the place on how you're going to answer it, because your throat center, or should I say your psychic center, has been shut down because you're afraid to express yourself, because you're still remembering getting hit in the mouth. But you buried that under a whole bunch of other things, which could be traumas that was built on top of that. You see what I mean? So all this is affected with how we treat our people. Remember, when during segregation, your parents, right, or your grandparents will whoop your parents' ass, or, you know, because they didn't want them going certain places. So what did we learn how to do? We learned how to get hyper vigilant with that belt. We basically got to the point that whipping our children's asses was our culture. Okay. And it started out as a survival mechanism for their own good. Okay. But it also went to the point that it became child abuse. See what I mean?
Right.
You know, so all of that is connected to the trauma, and you have to tell yourself a different story. You know, now meditation and going and imposing the new story on your subconscious, aka your life force, is one of the ways to do it. But if you're constantly being caught up in an algorithm on YouTube that's constantly repeating the same bullshit over and over again, and you believe it, you buy into it. I'm gonna tell you something about that. A lot of people are mentally enslaved by an algorithm. They think that everybody in the world is watching the same stuff that they're watching. But what it is that the algorithm is on repeat. So in other words, they're under hypnosis. In hypnosis, they're being convinced that if one group is studying flat Earth, they believe that everybody should know about the flat Earth, right? If one group is talking about water is wet, they're going to believe that everybody is having that conversation. If another group is focused on the war in Iran, they're going to assume that everybody has tapped into it because they're watching it so much. But it's the same stuff being repeated to them based on things that they look for in the past. A lot of times they're afraid to look outside that algorithm, or they don't want to, because it seems to be feeding into the narrative that they've adopted and they've embraced. And we do the same thing when it comes to life.
Indoctrinated.
Yes. So we have to also stop feeding the indoctrination.
Yeah,
So you have one on?
That's very true. No, I was going to say that's very true, but we have to remember some people. Let me give y'all, because I like to give stories. I had an old lady tell me one day. She said, "Oh, so everybody got evil in them. Everybody got evil, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?" So I said, "No, they don't." I said, "They got evil if they want to have evil." I said, "But I don't have no evil in me, right?" So I knew that she had been possessed with a spirit, which is they call the devil, right? So I told her, I said, "You're the devil." I said, "But you can't make me be the devil like you." Now, in some of our African traditions, it depends on what tribe you come from. it is believed that people can be born with these disagreeable spirits attached to them. And if they're attached to them, we can't even do exorcism on because you're not supposed to, right? I believe that people you can do what's right or do what's wrong. I believe that we have good energy and we have bad energy. And I believe that people that are in the traditions that decide they want to do evil want to do it because they want to activate that disagreeable side of themselves. And it does come back to part of what Ptah said because of the ego, right? So you know what? If I activate the evil side of me, I'm going to see how powerful I can make a goon work to kill this person, right? That's the ego.
Right.
But then
Exactly.
also that is the disagreeable side because we have both sides. Just like right now, we are in a war of this war is not just about a physical war, it's about a consciousness, a conscious war, right?
Yes.
So what's happening is also, according to the Christians, Armageddon is the war within your mind. The good, the bad. Which side do you choose? Right?
Right.
So
Right.
I honestly believe that we must understand that these people choose to activate that energy of being disagreeable. Right? And I do say that there's a lot of programming mechanism. Like, for instance, I don't watch negative stuff. I have one app on my phone, and every time I turn, this one died, that one died, the baby died, this one died. I said, and Bill being real, I said, take that shit off my phone. I said,
Yes.
take it off my
Right.
phone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to see that
Indeed.
shit,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so with saying that, we have to understand some people are born in this world because they are. I say we have a 3-dimensional world, not a 2-dimensional world, because there's that middle of Maya of being balanced. But we got to understand that you have the ability to use the good or the bad.
Yes.
Right.
Although we have been programmed, we still have you know what's right and wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know that if you lay down with a baby, that's going to be wrong. You know that's
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Even
Yes.
as
But
a
you
child.
choose to do it because you choose to use that disagreeable demon that you have on that side,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because
Even
Yes.
a
as a
lot of these
child.
people in the community, they want to, it's all again like Patasa ego, but then also a little bit of brainwashing and program. But again, when you know who you are, you can activate that power not to do bad. I
Yeah.
don't want to see a child die, not even a white child. What would I look like? I want to
Right.
do that,
Yeah.
right?
Because
But
it goes back to your humanity and it goes back to your
right,
God self, whether you
right.
are agreeable with your God essence or you're disagreeable with your God essence. Like literally,
Right.
just like what you just said. And I've seen this with people, and I know I think one of y'all might have said it actually, but even like with elders, because and I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was one of y'all, but either way, it was like the comment was like, just because you got up in years, with your age doesn't mean that you're wise or that you're an elder. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen people who I'm like, yo, you acting like this, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I should be able to look up to you, you know what I mean? But it's like those same things you were just talking about when those are at play, and it's like, wow, at this point, you should have already got that lesson learned, or you know what I'm saying, and mastered that level of ego or whatever the case may be. But it's like it goes back to the humanity aspect, because at the end of the day, we all know right from wrong. Even from a child, I knew damn well if I was doing something I had no business to do, there was some sort of internal voice or feeling or something that was telling me, damn well you shouldn't be doing that. And if I did it anyway, when I had to get my ass tore up or whatever the consequences was, it's like that voice was like, yeah, see, I told you, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like we all have that. So it's crazy to me because, like I said, we should be at another level where we don't, move on that accord. But I guess it goes back to, like you said, you choose to do and be whoever you want to be or do.
But
Yes.
what I like to say, some people will say, well, who says that's right? Who says that's wrong? Right? Think about it. Who says that's
Yeah,
right? Who says that's wrong? Who taught you that? Right? I've
yeah,
had people say that too. It's sort of like we park in a driveway and we drive on a parkway, right? Who told it's just backwards, right? So some people may say, well, who says that's right? Who's right? So what determines you your soul? Your soul. You understand? Being the soul that it is, you were given the ability coming from the cosmos or coming from the sea
Right.
or wherever many tribes may say, has given a choice, right? And it comes back to what you said, Patal, coming back here to do it again and do it again and do it again, right?
yeah,
So it's coming from the beginning of the creation of you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
right?
Right.
More
Right.
than just being programming. Baby, and I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Take a baby. How does a baby know that if you don't hold him, he's going to fall, he's going to start shaking, right? How does the
Mm-hmm.
baby know that? So it's embedded in his soul already.
Yes.
So some of these people, you can't save them. They
Yeah.
have come back with that same energy of wanting to be evil that's attached to them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they want to do bad.
Mm.
That's that
Yeah,
concept of free will, you
Yeah.
know.
right,
So
right.
we have been given the ability to make the
Who you
decisions,
looking for?
you know, even when things happen to us, you know, like people have these metaphysical experiences. When you go deep into their consciousness, you discover that they made some type of agreement for these things to happen.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's real. Excuse me. I got a couple of questions. Excuse me. I got a couple of questions. Y'all mind if we get a couple of questions from the tribe?
Sure.
No, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So, this is a really, actually, I got a few good ones. So, excuse me. Namaya Israel Phoenix Rose 777 says, well, in the case that was slavery real, or was it just something we hold on to just because it was taught to us as such? I felt like that was a damn good question. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, slavery was and is real as we make it. I'll tell you
That's
why I
right.
say that. When you are working at a job, I'm not even talking about whips and chains. I'm talking about clocking into a 9 to 5 job, right? And you know that you don't like working at the job, but you're doing it anyway because you feel it's the only means, but you're not tapping into your creativity. That's a form of slavery. So they've been
Mm-hmm.
doing this and tricking you into basically giving up your power for millennia. The idea of slavery happened because we were made to give up our power. Even if we're in chains, as harsh as this sounds, we still have the choice to fight. Now, we may have lost our lives, but at least we would not have had to been in slavery. I'm going to tell you something else. When you work at a job, let's say you're doing something that you feel is immoral. Let's say you work for the army or whatever. Okay, I've listened to people who said that they were deployed, went down to Somalia and shot children. Did they have to shoot the children? He said that he was in such a war situation that he went and shot the children. I said, did they have guns? He said, I didn't take time to look. I just shot. This was someone that I was talking to on a Greyhound bus one day. Well, here's the thing. He was on straight survival mode, right? He wasn't thinking. He wasn't filtering out anything. But he could also fall back and say, I was doing my job. Can I share something with you? Some of the most nastiest people that I've ever met are people who say that they were just doing their job, working for
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. See what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Now, do they have the choice to stay there? Do they have the choice to leave? I say they do. But the thing about it is that a lot of times the so-called idea of being in slavery is indirectly connected to a form of content. Okay? If you want to go to war with the slave master, then you're going to have to develop a certain amount of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is basically facing that situation in spite of it. That's what courage is. The only way that you can break off a mental, physical, and spiritual slavery is by having courage. You have to be willing to face that which you have allowed to limit yourself, or you've been afraid to ask certain questions. I give you an example. Okay, the shark in the tank. If there's an invisible glass wall, the shark will bump his nose upside that tank. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. If you lift the tank, if you lift that glass, the shark, after a while, being brainwashed, will not go past that glass, where that glass window was. But sometimes, if that shark is hungry enough while chasing food, the shark will go and pass that barrier. Sometimes we have to listen, and sometimes we have to be willing to take that step to walk across that invisible bridge. The bridge is there. It's just that our minds are editing it out because we've been told and programmed that it's not there. One form of programming, if you read a paragraph, right, your mind is only going to take in so much of the information at a time. Now, there's
Right.
experiments where they have like They have like a whole paragraph, and they have like 5 words that say of. Well, if you read that paragraph, right, at first, your mind will not notice those F's. Why? Because the brain doesn't think it's important. So your mind will literally edit it out.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is survival, some of it is programming based on what you believe is important.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to escape slavery, then you have to also take an assessment of who you are. Because those slaves, so-called slaves, they did fight. It happened. It's still happening. But the whole question is about agreeing to it. A lot of us working those 10% jobs and not getting paid anything, that's a form of slavery. When they put you in prison and have you pounding those rocks and pounding out license plates and building furniture, that's slavery. Okay? It even tells you in the Constitution that basically those who go back to prison are put back in slavery. Okay? So yes, that happened. It still happens.
Okay.
Well, what's your perspective?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, y'all know I'm a great seer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed is when I moved to the South, well, not just moving to Georgia, but even when I was stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
Did slavery exist? Yes, I seen them. And what I mean by that, I not only seen physical things, I seen spiritual things. Okay. And actually, you know, I do a lot of work outside in the bush, and I'm outside and stuff like that. And one day we was by this old man's house. He was an old black man, very nice black man. And I'm standing at the side of his house. And I'm looking through the bushes. And when I look through the bushes, I see all of these. I don't even want to call them slaves. Because I don't even know if I'm say I just seen them running, right? Now I'm talking about spiritually, y'all, because I can see like that. So I'm watching them run. I'm watching these people run. What I believe, I don't believe it existed to the point they said. I believe in the South, it was very prevalent that they took on different people, right? As what they call slaves to this day. I feel like it was very, big in the South because they still got some of that mentality down here. You know what I mean? And what I do see is when I'm dealing with people of color down from the South, is they still got that boss mentality, right? They still got the mentality of not looking a white man in the eye, right? So there had to be some type of energy that said there was some type of maybe form of hiding people, or they say slavery, that have some of these people still afraid to this day of these white people in the South, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I remember in the military, and I was in 1991. Me and my mother was driving from Leesville, Louisiana to Lake Charles. And there was a sign that said, whites welcome, blacks as fast as you can. Now, me coming out of New York, I blew my mind. I said, Ma, I said, you see that stuff? And luckily, I always kept guns, y'all. I always did. I always had guns.
I'm sorry, you said it said whites welcome. What did it say about blacks?
It said,
what?
whites welcome, blacks as fast as you can.
As fast as you can? What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
That means you're coming through what do they call them, little town? The sundown town?
Sundown town, yeah.
Sundown towns, yeah.
But I'm coming from New York. I never seen no shit like that, right? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, Ma, did you say? I couldn't believe it. But it was sad to me because that's made me think about and go back in my visions and look and say, you know what? They was doing a lot of stuff to black people.
Yeah.
If you want to call it slavery, I don't know. I just know down here, I felt the energy even more. And another thing, I went to go see a house because I was looking for a house with a pool. This house was built in 1830s. They still had the pictures of the old owners in there. But the trees outside of the house had a lot of moss hanging from it. And when I tell you, I said, nah, I had to get off the land. I said, nah, I'm seeing dead people hanging from the tree. I'm seeing black people, and I'm getting mad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the spirit said, every tree that has moss in it, they hung somebody from a tree.
Wow.
So again, I don't know if I want to call it slavery. I just know down here in the South,
That's
It was a
crazy.
lot of racist bullshit going on. And then even now, it's still a lot of racist shit going on.
Oh, yeah.
You still seeing truck drivers get hung. You still see these people with this mentality, you know, that believe that slavery took place. I don't believe there was no slave ships. I don't believe that. I believe that's a lie. Okay, I don't believe that they took slaves. You know, they talk about the
Transatlantic
transatlantic slave
slave trade. Yeah.
trade. Right? I don't believe that.
Hmm.
You know, I don't believe. I feel like they were bringing them over here to work, and then they started activating that evil side and thinking they can control these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was saying the South, I can feel the energy, and they still have that mentality.
Oh, yeah.
And as we said earlier, they have been equally brainwashed and programmed, but you know, I feel like they're not telling the other side of the story
Yeah.
because there was a lot of black people who got away, a lot of
Oh
black
yeah.
men that was not playing with their asses either. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Listen.
Indeed.
So with saying that, the way they portray it, was all people really scared? Or was y'all just capturing them, doing some shit that we can do, you know, and take somebody and hide them and get them to work for you, hold them? Was y'all doing that more than just, you know, calling it slavery?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I partially spiritually seen some things, and partially just don't believe all of that existed.
Yeah. No, you know, excuse me, I can't remember who posed the question, but whoever it was, Tribe, I appreciate you posing that question because I wanted to hear y'all's opinions because I ain't gonna front. Like, based upon being, you know, growing up in this school system, or I should say school/indoctrination system, I, you know, that was a thought that I feel like kind of encapsulated my mindset up until not too long ago, honestly, because I started thinking about it and it just didn't make sense to me because, and I didn't even do no deep dive researching on it, but where the fuck are all the ships at? Like, where are they at?
Exactly.
You know, so seriously, you know what I'm saying? If it
Exactly.
really happened, you know, and then the more I learn about our culture here in the Americas, which this is all new to me, but I'm learning quite a bit. I'm looking at the realization that it probably didn't happen, like you said, on that level or that scale, but in our elders, that the master teachers who I study under, who I sit at their feet, and I'm proud, you know what I'm saying, and humbled, and I'm grateful. It goes back to that programming we was talking about earlier, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we only had the access to the information that we had the access to, you know what I mean? It goes back to what you said when I'm about what do you know that nobody else knows? But at the same time, what do you know that certain people might know? You know what I'm saying? And that goes back to who programmed or who fed our minds, who gave us the food for thought. So it's like I think differently now because I need receipts. Like I don't go buy stuff without receipts. So it's like now I don't really feel like it happened the way that they pretend or project that it happened, but I do feel like it happened in a similar fashion to what you just said, because I've seen that too. But at the same time, I just feel like they burned and they destroyed a lot of history and a lot of information so it's like that. It's like you erasing the scoreboard. So it's like us walking into an arena after a so-called championship game was played, but the other team had the ability to control what we saw on the scoreboard before. You know what I'm saying? We didn't get to see the game, but we got to walk in the arena after the game was played. They had control of the scoreboard. So now we're looking at them like, oh yeah, they won 97-22, but we ain't see the game. But you just gotta take our advice. You know, you gotta take our opinion and perspective. That's the score, 97-22. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, nigga, we ain't see that.
Especially when you hear that our people have been here before, like before Ivan Van Sertima says before Columbus, right? We've been here. We was on this land first. And you mean we was slaves? We was the first one to walk. What you talking about? You know what I mean? So you can't tell me I was a slave. You know? Yeah.
I mean, my father used to say that his side of the family were never slaves, right? So I'm not saying slavery didn't happen. What I am saying is that, you know, they didn't tell you the whole story. It's kind of like it's called erase. I'll call it erased and replaced. Right. So, you know, and one thing what we can say, since we are here during this time, most of us was here during this time, right? We can look at in our lifetimes to see how they didn't play the narrative over and over and over again. Right. Remember, we had this conversation Wunam about slave narratives and why they were detrimental because they kept on showing them over and over again in the movies.
And
let's
programming though. That's literally That's the seductive subliminal programming. I never watch slave movies ever because I know my mentality, and Wunam, you said it, we have our ancestors in us, and that DNA is real. I know the way I am, and I'm gonna throw this disclaimer. I always do. I ain't saying I'm the hardest dude in the world, the toughest dude in the world. I ain't saying I'm none of that. Don't want to be, but at the same time, I am gonna declare I'm a person. I ain't taking no fuck shit off nobody. You come to me with that bullshit, I'm gonna try to cave your fucking face in. Don't play with me. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just my energy, and that's how I feel when people cross me. But I don't move in the world like that. I don't want no problems with nobody. I like to laugh, joke, have a good time. You know what I'm saying? Like all that. But please don't come for me, man, because I'm not taking that from you. And I don't give a fuck who it is. Like, I don't play like that. So it's like, I know if I have that in me, and I mean, it's in me. I know it came from somewhere. They wasn't having that. They not taking none of that. So I don't know who y'all talking about.
You know what's crazy is back to what we got to understand this. What did Francis Cress Wilson say? Genetic annihilation. So all they're doing is becoming their very own undoing, right? So we don't have to do that no more. We don't have to worry about that no more because they're slowly but surely just going away and going away. You got it? ISIS papers, right? So, and I've had the pleasure of having her on my radio show 3 times. I love her. I had the pleasure of having her 3 times. So, I mean, the thing about it is we got to understand, you know, they're going to do everything in their power to try and keep those images and thoughts in your head. But they never banked on the fact that as this earth and this world is going through a transformation, so are we. So are we. It don't matter what you do. Exactly. And you can give us new medicines, right? But did you realize that the DNA was going through a transformation? So if you give me genetic foods, my body's going to, how you call
transform. It's going to evolve.
No. If you give me genetic food, my body's going to kick it out because they don't belong in my body because the new DNA says, hell no, that's fake. Yes. I don't want it. You understand? Your body's going to reject it. So they're not understanding the seriousness of the spiritual, physical transformation that humanity is going through.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we're going through this physical and what's happening is the more you do, the more that it's going to be washed away, put away to the back burner, because we're not going to remember nothing because our DNA is taking us to the next level or the next vibrational energy or whatever you want to call it.
Supercell, elevating.
But you know, they did some research in what is called the Heart Math Institute. And what happened is that they experimented with DNA and they discovered that when a person is in relaxing in a state of joy, their DNA expands. But when they're in a state of fear, trauma, or sadness, their DNA contracts. You see what I mean? So what we're going to do is we're going to be in that stage of expansion. But this is why, you know, being careful with what you're taking into the media, you're kind of taking that in through your spirit. I'll give you an example. See, everybody, we may not can necessarily say that we can recall what took place 200 years ago, okay? You could say we were there, but not in these forms. So our memories are kind of like blurry about that because we have different aspects and narratives on how that may have happened. You know, everybody may have seen it different. Some people are coming in from different timelines and so on. So you have that which appears that these contradictions about how things took place. However, we do remember because we're on this timeline of the attacks on September 11th, right? 2001. So what that did, that reactivated the same existential terror that began during what they called the Cuban Missile Crisis. For those who were around at that time, that basically reactivated their trauma. So suddenly you had all these Americans, they were told that danger could strike anytime at any place from invisible enemies, right? And the media, it replayed the towers collapsing thousands of times. You couldn't even turn the TV on without seeing a replaying to destroy the Pentagon and all that stuff. And they replayed the towers. All right, so certain communities that were already with systematic trauma. What's that, Wunam?
I said I actually used to work on the 95th floor in the towers.
Right. Oh, okay. So you were there. So you saw how high those towers were.
Yeah, you know? I worked on. You had to take 2 elevators to get up, but I worked on the 95th floor. When you would look down, everybody looked like a dot on the ground. That's how high it was.
Those were big. Those were huge. You know. And what's interesting there was an old school, I think it was the Spider-Man video game before that happened that showed those towers getting destroyed. And there was like comics, there was books showing meteors hitting those towers and everything else. It's almost as if they were getting you ready, okay, for the story that they was going to sell to the people. A narrative that's going to put fear in people. So then you got this COVID-19 incident. That's just right around the corner in history. We had this story of a pandemic, right? It's this mass traumatic event, unlike any in modern history, according to them. People were isolated, they were bombarded with death statistics, and they're forced to confront mortality every day, right? With all these fears, they was having people put on masks. They were telling people you need to take this shot. I'm gonna tell you something. I never took the shot and I never got sick during that whole time, right? But people that I know who took the shot, not only some of them got sick, but some of them even died after taking the shot. Okay, I'm gonna just keep it real. So for a lot of communities, that trauma was multiplied. You know, they talk about because they keep constantly showing higher death rates and frontline exposures and economic vulnerability. You can't work, medical mistrust. You know, all this centuries of abuse, things that they were doing to people in the establishment. I have one sister that I know who had like I think she had a stroke, right? She was cool. Then she goes to the hospital. And next thing you know, she catches COVID while in the hospital after taking a shot, and she passes away.
Man, listen, I lost a brother, man. Rising Power, the OG, man. I lost a brother the same way. This brother, I'm talking about. He looked like a goddamn. He was built like a running back, bro. Like I'm talking about. I know for a fact there's no way he died from that. I know he didn't. You know what I'm saying? But he was in there by himself, and this was in the height of it. And you know they had him quarantined. They wasn't letting visitors and company and family and all that. So I feel like it was a murder. You know what I'm saying? They assassinated my dude, but because I just know for a fact there's no way he went out from that. I know it's not. You know what I'm saying? So you know that's all. It's the what do they call it? It's the depopulation agenda. That's what we're talking about now. The depopulation.
And look at the fear that increases among the people. You see what I mean? So next time when they have another pandemic or plandemic, they're gonna have people scared. You see what I mean? And here's the thing. They get the scared people to police each other. See what I mean? So we have to also deal with the fact that, you know, you send your children to school, you may have taught about one thing, but then they have to deal with peer pressure. Well, a lot of adults are still dealing with peer pressure. So you have thought police. You get into a lot of these ATRs, you still have to deal with thought police. Spirits have showed you one thing, then somebody turn around and say, oh, no, that ain't true. It ain't happened like that because it didn't happen to them. And I'd be in a mess around and say, man, fuck you. It happened to me. You know, and that was good enough. You know, you said the Erasure don't come to people in dreams. They came to me in dreams, and they was teaching me all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to wait for you to tell me anything because you want to have some type of control over my narrative. You see what I mean? When you have your personal destiny, right? So you have a lot of things happening where they don't want you to be you, and they're against you being you. You see what I mean? And that's all part of the game. You know, let's look at this. You know, when you stack all these events up that we talked about, right? Like nuclear fear. Remember in the 80s, everybody was scared that they was going to have a nuclear war. Another form of fear, right? You know, all the gender war, all that's fear-based, all of that. You know, so you get this population living in trance density. So that's that when I'm talking about that inherited fear and that unresolved trauma and stories built on top of the trauma. And people become reactive instead of reflective, and they're anxious instead of grounded, right? And they're all divided, and they've lost all connection because of that division. So as us, as people, you know, Black people and so on, indigenous people, this trance runs deep because we're talking about, well, at least 400 years as they have recorded of our ancestral trauma. They'll see the systemic oppression and the psychological warfare. So transcendence then, it looks upon as being survival. And it's this process of breaking that trance and healing the nervous system and reclaiming the clarity that history tried to erase. How do you heal the nervous system? You got to go out in nature. You got to connect back to the trees. Notice how I remember in Seattle, right? They used to have plum trees and blackberry bushes growing everywhere. And the funny thing is around 2010, right? When they had the sustainability movement, this is supposed to be when they're talking about people living in sustainability. in renewable energy. Well, guess what they did? They cut down all the black bushes and removed the plum trees and wanted to make it illegal that people grow fruit trees in their yards.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I mean? You know, so, and here's the thing. They tricked people into thinking that clearing away the black bushes was a good thing because they were saying that they were invasive plants. But don't you remember grandma making blackberry pie? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the game that they play is if you are not aware of certain things, they trick you into making agreements that put you in a bind. You see what I mean? Even when they have these petitions and they're trying to rush you to sign a petition, you need to read it yourself because you could be signing away home safety or worker safety because they wanted to put the funding into something else. You got to pay attention to what you're signing and what you're agreeing to. You know what I'm saying? The 5%ers used to say that my word is bond no matter to whom or what. And then they replied by saying, I shall give my life before my word shall fail. In other words, you got to pay attention to who you're basically giving your word to. You see what I mean? If you don't agree with the philosophy of joining the military, right, and you think it's going to be a problem, remember, you take that oath, well, you're bond. You're bond to that oath. You see what I mean? So when we say things, these are like words, these are spells and everything else that we're putting out into the universe, right? So that many slaves ran away. But here's the thing. During the time of the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, it wasn't Abraham that freed the slaves. Black folks freed themselves. They freed themselves. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well,
you know,
that's the thing where I feel like the story is very convoluted, and I'm not saying it didn't because I don't speak on stuff that I don't know. And I know, shout out to brother Nkosi because he shared that it was real. I know he's a masterful researcher, so I'm not, I'm not going to dispute or debate with anybody on that topic because that's not my area of expertise. However, I do have to say I feel like it's not adding up. All the numbers aren't aligning to what their so-called story is about it. You know what I mean? Now, I went to Elmina. I walked through that dungeon. I felt that energy. Some shit happened in Elmina. I'm telling you that right now because I was in there. I felt that I'll never forget what I felt when I walked. I felt like what Wunam was saying about seeing them trees with the moss. That's how I was when I walked through them dungeons in Elmina. So I know for a fact some stuff went down in there. But I tell you one thing. I also know them prayers that I left and them libations that I poured when I was in there too. And I sure as hell see a lot of things happening. I'm not saying I'm the catalyst, but I'm damn sure saying that I see a lot of things happening right now. Like for real, where the ancestors that I spoke to and prayed to and venerated, they already was doing whatever. But I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to walk through there. I hated feeling what I felt, but I feel damn proud that I poured them libations and I prayed the way I prayed because I see collectively on both sides of the veil, we doing the work, regardless of, if it happened, if it was as bad as they said it was or whatever the case may be. But I know one thing, it doesn't add up to what they projected on us based upon the receipts that they don't have or I haven't seen, you know what I'm saying, to make it quantify what they, try to put on us, man. So, it's something I got to do a lot more research on. But shout out to T. Wriggles because she said, Dan Calloway is the expert in this space. I'm not familiar with his work, but it's funny because I literally just got exposed to his work like maybe 2 days ago. So I'm gonna definitely look into him and see, just trying to study up and see and learn a lot more about it before I talk about it because that's not where I have an expertise at. But
I heard James Holloway, he does talk about it. He talks a lot about the American Indians, which that's another thing I've noticed down here and the energy that I picked up when I was out down here in Georgia too. Because this used to be owned by the Creek and the Cherokee Indians. And they took a lot of their stuff too, which we do know the original Indians were Black American Indians. But yeah, he does get into a lot of, but I mean, my thing is, I don't just go by, again, I'm going to say this again. And people can say what they want to say, but I'm very, very highly spiritual.
Yeah.
And any information or most of the information I get is from me tapping in and going out and into nature and actually communing with some of these ancestors. Because it's very possible I do ancestral readings. I can commune with these people that been on this land at one time.
Yeah. I know you can. Well, I was just talking about that. I say I got a couple of different people I'm probably end up sending your way because I know what you did for me. So I know without a shadow of a doubt, like you do that.
Yeah. So I was saying that, it's like we got to understand, at the end of the day, where do we go from here? And as we are going through transformation, so is this earth, so this, the trees, the species, everything's going through a transformation. And we gotta go with the energy, and we gotta stay close to our ancestors, and we gotta make sure that we can communicate with our ancestors so they can continue to guide our path on the next level that we're going to, which is no more oppression. But we'll get into that later. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's real.
Yeah.
Real quick, because I gotta get ready to get out of here so I can get me some food and something. I've been on this thing since 5 o'clock. But before we get out of here, though, if y'all if y'all open to taking some questions from the tribe, and then giving a closing message before we get out of here. But Wunam, I meant to send this to you by text, but I forgot. But I actually just edited it while we were on this call. But I want to share something with you, or with the whole tribe now. Well, I was gonna send it to you, but that happened. I think I saw it yesterday. What's today? Thursday. I think I saw it yesterday or Tuesday. But check this out real quick and let me know what you think about this, because I've had several different encounters that I shared on the last couple podcasts that we had. But let me share this one with you real quick and see what you pick up from spirit. This happened right here where I'm at, not too far in Central Florida. So I'm gonna share this real quick.
This never happens. Oh my gosh!
Let me play it one more time.
This never happens. Oh my gosh!
What do you think about that?
The dolphins?
Like the way it came, like right by it, because like mind you, I've had multiple times. The last time we did a show, it's not the last time, the time before, but I remember telling you like that was the time when I saw dolphins, I saw eagles, I saw all kinds of nature interactions and all that. Yeah, like I seen this with my own eyes, but mind you, I was driving. When I saw the dolphins, you know what I'm saying, and the eagles and all these different encounters with nature. So that was some random people. I don't know these people, but I do know that you and I spoke about how the water is changing. The water is looking beautiful. It's looking clean. It's looking, what I'm saying? Like we got water here, and we got beautiful water in Central Florida, but the way the water's looking now, it reminds me when I'm in like damn near like the Bahamas or the Turks, or in the tropical, you know what I'm saying? Like down in the islands, like beautiful. And it's like, oh shit. So anywho, what do you think about, our water family, you know what I'm saying, showing up and showing out like this?
Our sea family, they're showing up and showing out because they're happy because they won the war. There was a war between man and the sea, right? There was a war. Now,
I meant to send it to you, but I'm glad it happened this way.
If you all watch Aquaman, they will show you that war that was taking place. If you all watch Black Panther #2, they will show you the war that was taking place between man and the sea. Now they're happy because they really won the war. Not only that, we got to remember that this, as well as we're going through transformation, so is the sea.
Yes.
So the sea is going through a transformation. The beings in our sea family is going through transformations, right?
Yeah.
You seen the dolphins freely just coming? Now, we know at one time, I've always communicated with dolphins. Well, first of all, my country of Cabo Verde was surrounded by nothing but water. So the story goes that we were half mermaid and half human, right? I'm not going to say mythology because I believe there's a lot of truth to that, because my grandmother, when she died, she went back to the sea. She didn't go to the ancestral, she went back to the sea realm. Now, not only that, her feet were stuck together. Her legs was like mermaids. And they say if your legs are really cold, that means you're half mermaid. Okay, this is real stories. Now, I'm just going to say this. They have to understand everything on this planet, excuse me, even the other planets are going through a transformation. So everything's changing. So these beings are also spiritually awake.
Yeah. Yes.
What happened?
Mr. Nicky? I think
it
she
froze up. Yeah, it froze up. I'm gonna take her out and put it back on, because it's crazy how the technology want to do that now. You know what I'm saying? We're getting into the oh wow. It's okay, Baba. We can chop it up. Let me know your thoughts, because it's crazy. This happened with 100 earlier too. Like literally, like during his live stream album release party. Excuse me, his screen went black. But we know what it is. So anywho, what you got, Baba? She'll be back in, because
I was gonna say we so badass, we just shutting technology down at this point.
That's what happens.
So
That's what happens when you're messing with the gods.
You know, for real.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, the dolphin represents something very spiritual because dolphins, you know, they've always been identified with evolved beings.
Facts.
There are those who say that the Nomo are connected to the dolphins.
Yep.
You know,
Facts.
and that dolphins are known to see a human swimming and drowning. They've been known to rescue the human and bring him back to the land.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the dolphin, to me, that's the dolphin's way of letting you know, hey, we're here. We got your back.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Now, he said that's never happened before. A lot of times when you're in tune with certain elements of nature, you will see things like birds, certain type of birds that you don't normally see, right?
Yes.
Like, for instance, when I was going through a very spiritual moment in my life, I was doing a lot of prayers. I was working with Oshun and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, I seen a blue jay not too far away from a blue heron. Now, keep in mind, there's an aspect of Oshun that wears blue. A lot of people just think she wears yellow. There's an aspect of Oshun in that. Yeah. You see? Yeah. So, you know, so I tapped into something, and the way the deity was communicating back to me was with these birds that I never seen. And I noticed that every time I had worked with Oshun, there was a time when I see a blue heron. Now, you know, the heron is connected to the Benu bird in ancient Kemet.
I did not know that. I know now.
Yeah. That's what that's what the heron started out as. That was the Benu. The Benu became the phoenix. Then the phoenix is the heart of Ra. Right? According to Kemetic tradition.
Yes, sir.
So when we're seeing animals and we're seeing different beings, always we want to learn, okay, what is that energy or what is that animal connected to?
Yes.
You see, if someone is deeply devoted to Mami Wata and they see a dolphin, you know, swim out to the surface and dive back into the ocean, and they've never seen that before, chances are that's Mami Wata communicating with them. You know, or Yemaya, or Yemoja, you see? So a lot of times when you make an offering, when you go by the water, you may leave something there and turn around and don't look back.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to make an offering to Olokun. One thing I noticed is that I kept on running into the idea that like Olokun and Mami Wata, they like to have offerings like Fanta. For some reason, they like Fanta. You know.
Well,
that's the first time I heard that. Yeah, I never heard that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I heard it twice. My Baba taught me to give my Olokun Fanta. You know? And then later on, I heard that you could appease water spirits with Fanta. I don't know what they like about carbonated orange, but it seems like it works. You know, but a lot of times when I go to the waters, I might take 7 fruits and make an offering and leave it there.
Yeah.
And that's what we usually do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We give a lot of fruits to But you know what I do know is that dolphin, and by the way, my phone, it just cut off and it wouldn't let me back on. Y'all know that, right?
Look, trust me. Look, I done been through that so many times. I told Baba, I said, look, I'm not surprised. We're just gonna go ahead and keep, because you know, like we know what.
Yeah, it cut me off, so I came back on. But you know that dolphins can shapeshift into mermaids.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And they're doing it again. Wow.
Brother Nkosi said that dolphins are our relatives and they communicate with us. Yes, they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Wunam went into that heavy. That's why I'm saying, like, it's crazy because I saw it. It was at least a day or two ago, and I meant to actually text it to her. I meant to send it to her because as soon as I saw it, she was the first person I thought of. Like, yo, I need to send this to her so she can kind of, you know, give me what I'm hoping she could give us if they don't start playing with the technology. But you know, but now I feel like it was divine time how it happened, you know, on the stream where it came to me like, yo, ask her about it so the whole track could, you know, see it and hear her feedback or perspective on it. But you know how they do, man. But I really hope she can come back on and finish with us because I want to hear her perspective on it. But yeah, I agree with Nkosi, and it is real because I got some footage of dolphins, several different videos I have with them coming, but some of them I was like either in buildings, like in restaurants, or one of them I was like at a river passageway, which is nuts. I was telling her I actually seen a dolphin in the river before down here, which that's not common, you know what I'm saying? Because they normally are in the bay, you know, in the ocean, the seawater, the salt water. But I seen one in the river portion of our waters, and it blew my mind. I'm like, yo, that's crazy. And I got it somewhere on film. I gotta find it. But that's why I wanted to share that, because the download just came to me, you know, while we were on this call to put it on the screen or what have you. But Yeah, that's a real thing. Dolphins are extremely intelligent. And matter of fact, if you want to go back, can you go back to what you were sharing about them being connected to the nomos and you know, us them being family with us?
Okay, so I saw where the brother in Kosi mentioned about the dolphins being family, and I agree. They identify with the ancestors. Now there are reports about the Nomo being, you know, representing or represented by the dolphins, right? Well, here's the thing too, is that there's a story about a fish, right? He was Nomo Anagono. And it said that this fish, right, would allow his body to be eaten by humans and then thrown back into the sea as a sacrifice, where 3 days later he'd be resurrected. Sounds familiar?
Yeah.
And keep in mind, one of the stories, somebody mentioned about the Bible, you know, being a book that basically reinforced slavery. My thing about that is that a lot of the stories in that Bible was something that they took from previous sources, and they kind of like congealed it into their own text. You know, we never would have believed that the divine was some real racist goblin on top of a mountain who basically got everybody studying and worshiping some racist history text as a book of religion. But unfortunately, that's what happened. Now, the story of Jesus, was interesting. There's an aspect of Jesus where he's symbolized as a fish. Right? It's called ichthys. And again, the fish is sacrificed, right? And resurrected 3 days later. In Native American culture, there's the story of the salmon. They say that certain Native American ethnicity, and I can't recall, forgive me, but they believe that when the salmon come back and we catch the salmon and eat the salmon, we throw the bones back into the water and they're resurrected 3 days later. They got this in their story. But if you look on the zodiac, remember that I believe that the fish represents the age of Pisces, coming from the age of I believe into the age of I know in Aquarius. That's the age of belief. So Jesus represented that fish, which is Pisces, which is 180 degrees from Virgo, representing being born of a virgin. Oh, that's part of the zone of the your astrotheology. You see, so that's a science. It's very ancient, and we got to keep in mind that the story of the stars is one of the oldest traditions that became your religion. The word magus, magic, comes from the magi, who were stargazers. Right. But that word magus is also connected with imagination and image, because that's connected with the magic. You see what I mean?
The wise guys, the wise men.
Indeed. Dolphins speak to children when the womb of a woman is around. It does something great to the child. Ashe. Ashe. There's a close connection. Well, now we're back.
Yeah, I was saying, you back, Wunam? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. So look, we were just chopping it up because I was trying, like I was telling Baba Ptah and the trial, like I wanted to, I meant to send that to you the day that I saw it, but I just, you know, doing whatever, working and all that. But so it came to me.
Y'all ain't seen nothing yet.
Well, listen, but that's why I wanted to share it to you, so you can share, you know, what you picked up from it, what you thought about it. But I know
everybody's so busy paying attention to the activity on the land and in the cosmos up there, they ain't paying attention to what's going on in the sea. And there's many cities under the sea. I'll be done with my book soon, and I'll be talking about it. But there's a lot of activity in that sea, and there's a lot of energy that's coming through the sea from the cosmos. So, you know, dolphins happy, everybody's happy. There's a war that was won under that sea. I'm gonna leave it at that. There was a war that was won in that sea. And I was saying before I politely got cut off that the actual the dolphins are able to shapeshift into mermaids and merwomen.
Right.
That's why they cut us off, because you were saying some real stuff that, you know what I'm saying? But you can't stop it. Like, it is what it is. Like, you know, so whatever.
Yeah, you was about to get too deep for them. But you know, even the story of the mermaid, like especially in my Mami Wata, there's a story about how they would come and find of someone who was chosen. And they'd take this person into the waters, educate them about deeper truths, and then bring them back. You find this story not just in Africa, but also among the Polynesians and even in the Philippines. That same story. You see, you know, So Muta also mentioned about having been adopted by beings from another realm and then being given knowledge. And he comes back and all this knowledge is being downloaded into his mind. So when he wakes up, he has inventions on his mind, right? You know? So a lot of times when we tap into something beyond this realm, we give ourselves permission to receive. We got to make the agreement to receive.
Right.
And that's it, you know, because we've also have been made to close our hearts down. So we do not receive, nor do we send out. So a lot of us have open minds and closed hearts. And it prevents us from being able to manifest the things that we need to manifest, because the energy that emanates from the heart goes further and is actually more powerful, the energy that emanates from the brain.
Facts. Yeah, that's real. But, you know, it's funny because that's one of the things I'm most grateful about with my journey, man, is the fact of, you know, finding out that I'm a child of Obatala, and then, you know, not too long after that, Orunmila. But I'm grateful for the peace and the serenity that they pour, you know, within me, because, you know, the fire is there and we got to have that fire, but I ain't gonna front. I know my fire was fiery, you know what I'm saying? It still is, but I'm just grateful for like that, you know, the white aspect, you know, of being able to kind of cool it down, because it gives me a lot more patience, you know, and it gives me the opportunity to like really deal with things from a logical, you know what I'm saying, spiritual, more calculated perspective versus just wanting to like knock some shit over real quick. You know what I mean? Like, not saying that it ain't still there, because it is, but it's nowhere near like it used to be when I was a lot younger. But I'm grateful for it because I can see how it saved a lot of relationships. It saved a lot of opportunities. You know, it saved a lot of things for me by not allowing that energy, you know what I'm saying, to turn up and raise up to just, you know, want to just go crazy, like violent or, you know what I'm saying, aggressive and all that. So, you know, and I feel like that's all about like what Wunam was saying earlier about how our DNA is upgrading and activating and elevating, you know what I'm saying, all to a higher level. We are tuning to the, you know, to the frequency of the universe and the cosmos and the planet. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm grateful for it because, you know, you hit it heavy when you said you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you got a closed heart, like what is that doing? There's a disconnect. Right. You know what I'm saying? So you got to, the goal is to have both, to be able to have the open mind, to have the open ori, to have the open mind's eye with the heart too. So that way, you know, you're not off balance. You know what I mean? You're able to bring both of them to the equation. And I ain't perfect. I got a long ways to go. I ain't never gonna be perfect, but I am grateful for, you know, how spirit has led me to grow and evolve, because I feel like I'm a lot better now than I was yesterday. And I'm gonna keep working on getting better, you know what I'm saying, tomorrow than I was today. So I feel like that's all we can do, really.
Right. And you know, you mentioned the Ori and Obatala. And the thing about it is that, you know, fear is a sign that there's an imbalance with the Ori. And or you're living in fear and constant anxiety. You know, so this is why we want to tap into working and feeding and making sure our heads are clear. You know, because it helps us return to our purpose, we return to our inner head, we connect to our higher self, which is called the Eponary. That's the higher self that dwells in heaven. But when we live in fear, that shrinks the world, right? So we work with our consciousness, with our Ori, that expands it, you know. So you talked about Obatala, right? Obatala represents calmness, clarity, purity, cool-headedness. And according to the Meta Netter Volume 1, it talks about Obatala being connected to Osir. See, so both, like we spoke about earlier, or in another episode, the story of Obatala and the story of Osir is practically the same in the regards that both of them got broken up. Orisha Allah was broken up into pieces and scattered when a particular being had rolled a huge boulder down the hill and smashed him into pieces. So he had to be brought back together. There's a story about how in the beginning, Obatala had given the world light, and Eshu broke the light into pieces. And then eventually light was brought back together. So it's about bringing back the fragments of ourselves, you know, and returning to that state, which is considered to be coolness, right? A cool head cannot be hypnotized by fear.
Yes.
Right.
So, you know, and this is literal, because if you study Qigong, right, if your head is hot and if your stomach is cold, that means that your life force has been thrown off and that your life force is imbalanced.
Right,
So
that's real, man.
I do Qigong every night, so he's telling the truth.
I need to learn that. That's real though. Even like, because I'm telling you, like I know me. If I get like, I give gratitude. I haven't like crossed that line. It's been a long time, like probably a decade. But I just know like when that energy got that, it's like a volcano. When that energy start bubbling up, and God forbid if it fuck around and come across the crescent of you know what I'm saying, the volcano, it get out. Oh my God, I don't even like it. I swear to God, I don't even like it because that shit is crazy. It's ugly. It's catastrophic. It's destructive. I don't want nothing to do with that, like for real, because it's not easy to pull that back in. You know what I'm saying? It takes a long time to even get to a sense of normalcy. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just how like rageful it would be. So it's like I'm grateful, like you know, to not like deal with that energy like that no more. But it took, you know, being willing to go through that process of learning, you know what I'm saying, to really tap into just being at peace, you know, and you know, every battle doesn't have to be fought. The best war is the best victory in war is a war not fought. And I believe that. That's real.
And that's keeping a cool head, right? And this is the thing. And this is why we want to learn about who we are.
Yes.
Because then we'll make the agreements that will keep us out of those circumstances.
Yes.
Right.
You see, a lot of us will pay attention and we won't sign anything and ignore the fine print that gets us into these situations in the first place.
Yeah.
You know? So modern media is designed to activate adrenaline.
Yep.
Okay.
Facts.
And it also is to make you hypervigilant. I'm talking about not just modern media, I'm talking about social media and everything else. It creates outrage and is used to spread panic. So basically they're going to mess with your aura. So you gotta remember that's a game that they're playing so that you don't fall into the fear and make agreements that will take you out of alignment. You know, so the fear keeps the people, well, clicking and watching and everything else. But when you step back from
pockets aligned with money too.
Yeah.
Indeed. They get you to spend your money. Oh, you better buy all this. You know, you better buy yourself an underground bunker because we about to have World War III pretty soon. You better get prepared. You see, they make money off of fear.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Make money off of fear.
So,
Yeah.
You know, so we in the trance.
Yeah. And no, I was saying the thing about it. The thing about it is, and I'm pretty sure we've all said something similar to this effect, if not the same as that thing before on this channel and a lot of other places. But at the end of the day, there is no death for us. We are immortal, infinite beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So the worst thing that could absolutely freaking fucking happen to us is the body will be transpired. You know what I'm saying? It'll expire, and then we will transform and elevate right back to that same universal source that we came from. You know what I'm saying? So there ain't no end for us. You know, the ancestors show us that. So it's like
it's from birth to death and death to life.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you,
You know, that's it. The whole idea is remembering, tapping into the divine nature of our moon, the DNA, you know, and remembering, because our ancestors, you know, we look at didn't survive slavery, colonialism, genocide, displacement, war, famine, and systemic oppression, and we're still here, and we're healthy. Okay, physically, we can still push mountains. We still have the ability to influence the world with our thoughts. So that means that the only way you can be defeated is if you accept defeat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So fear tells you that you're fragile, but your ancestral memory, it tells you that you was forged by fire. And according to alchemy teachings, nature, through fire, nature is renewed whole. So we allow ourselves to be forged by the fires of circumstances so we can become stronger. And at the same time, we give ourselves a story that shows that we were Haru, had Haru, and that we ever overcome. Fear isolates, but connection heals, because remember, healing is bringing back the pieces back into oneness. Heal means to make whole. So, you know, and that, you know, so we go to the cosmology of our ancestors, right? Now, community consciousness teaches that no one heals alone. There's a story. What's that story? They repeated it in that Black Panther movie. It was a phrase that they say that when a child feels unloved, he will burn it down to feel its warmth. When a child feels unloved by the village, he will burn the village down to feel its warmth.
Yeah. Talking about Killmonger. I remember that part. Yeah.
Correct. So community also breaks down into common unity, because there's one divine consciousness that pervades all things, which is what I think what Sister Nikki was also touching upon is there anything that you know that someone else doesn't know? Because basically we're all downloading. You download something here, you discover that someone on the other side of the world downloaded the same information A lot of times people be thinking that someone plagiarized them. No, you're on the same frequency and you downloaded that information at the same time. Because an idea, well, the Greeks got their knowledge from the Cometians. Ideas, as Plato talks about, seen as spirits, where you basically channel and become the vessel for an idea and you manifest and you bring it into fruition. And that's part of the reason what we're here to do. That's part of our alchemy, to spiritualize matter.
Yes.
So fears and imagination has been misused and it protects catastrophe into the future. A lot of us is so scared of a possible future that can go wrong. We believe that we can be annihilated because we've been lied to and we've accepted the lie. But if you have not accepted a lie, someone mentioned about the soul being immortal. That is correct. You cannot be destroyed and you're in past, present, and future all at the same time. And you bring it all together into the present. And therefore you have received the gift of life. So truth brings us back to the present moment. You have power, clarity, options, you have breath. And me, I remember Baba Haru used to answer people who asked him this: what exactly is your religion? He'd be like, sit down for a minute. I want you to do what I do. Take a deep breath. And then the other brother would take a deep breath and he'd say, you have just joined my religion.
I love it actually. That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that too.
Yeah. Look, I love it. I share that all the time too, because I feel like there's no, this is how I always say it. There's no difference between my child of godness and your child of godness. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing that'll ever make me better than anybody else. Ain't nothing that's gonna make nobody else better than me, because we are all a child of the creator. You know what I'm saying? My child of godness is the same child of godness as your child of godness. So anything I could do, you could do. And anything I see, Baba, you do, I you know what I'm saying, I could do. Like, I might not be able to do it the same way, capacity or level, but I feel like I could do it. Like the first time we interviewed you, bro, it's so funny because we talked about this, but I'm sitting there laughing and smiling because I'm like, yo, this is everything I read about. And you know what I'm saying, studied all these years, and this dude is literally just free, like he just spitting it out, like pouring it out right here. It was crazy because to this day I still don't remember being like, yo, I've never seen anything like this before from somebody, you know what I'm saying, in an interview. And that's saying something, bro, because I humbly say I've been blessed to, interview some very powerful minds, but that transmission, I know for a fact. I don't know if you've ever been to Kemet or not, but you can't tell me no goddamn different. You were literally speaking everything that's on them walls in or out of Kemet. You were speaking it on that show. I'm like, yo, this is crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't transmit information like that if it's not within you. So that to me was literally the activation of the DNA that's within all of us, our DNA code. So it's like, it's a powerful thing, man. And I know I'm grateful for being able to see, you know what I'm saying, like greatness and just like to see things happen and to be able to appreciate it. And it was like, it's just, I appreciate, all of this. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate the tribe, but this has been amazing, man, for real. Like, it's a powerful time.
That's why he is who he is, Khepra Ptah.
Yes, sir.
Right? Big sister Wunam.
Yeah,
same for you, Wunam. Shit.
Well, I never told you my Kemetic name. My Kemetic name, I was named by Baba Heavy. Remember, Khepra Ptah is I was named Hepsetchet, so I'm Queen Hepsetchet. Yeah. Yeah, that's who he crowned me as Queen Hepsetchet. And it's crazy because I was watching again, of course, the History Channel, and they showed her tomb. And when they showed her tomb, they said it was buried, but they never opened it. And when I tell y'all, Spirit showed me, no, they said they couldn't find the body. Spirit showed me that under the tomb was the body, and it was covered with resin. They were covered with frankincense and myrrh. That's why they could not find the body. The bodies of her and her husband. Yeah, it was interesting. So yeah, tapping into that energy. Ptah, yeah, he's the one. He's the one who taught me how to do a Nejarak Amin Ra, right? He taught me a lot about the Kemetic sciences. I love it though. Yeah, so you're not lying. He literally speaks what you see on the walls. Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, it's a real thing, man. Like, for real. Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and tap out. But y'all want to leave the tribe with anything before we get out here? And look, I want to share that dolphin video one more time because they love that. Like, and they was like, yo, that was dope. So if y'all got anything for the tribe before we get out of here, I'm with it.
Things I wrote that I'm going to share with the tribe.
Okay.
Ending the trance of oppression.
Okay.
Oppression often works through fear, misinformation, and loss of cultural memory. Awakening happens when people reconnect with heritage, ancestors, and community. Remembering identity and history helps break the psychological trance of domination.
Check.
And the last thing, preparing for the new world. Preparing for a new world means strengthening families, healing spiritually, learning ancestral wisdom, and building communities based on balance and integrity. It is about becoming the kind of people who can create a healthier future. And I close with that message.
I share.
I say.
That's crazy, because one of the tribe members said something very similar. Together we must build our community. You are building a community. Those of us who are partisan will gain strength. That's what's up. Divine alignment, man. Baba, you got anything?
Yes, I have one thing, and that is, what exactly are we remembering? We're remembering our original state. In the Yoruba tradition, there's the self that resides in heaven called the Upanri. For those who are into Vedic tradition, it's called Paramatman, which is connected to Parabrahman. And here's the secret. The secret is that you're still in the spirit world. You never left the spirit world.
Ashe.
Ashe.
That's right. Ashe.
Ashe. Well, I'm gonna leave with one quick one, and this ain't my original one, but the energy is on me, so I'm gonna use it. It comes from a very powerful source. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was found in the entrance to King Tut and Kemet. So it's know thyself. A person, excuse me, a person who knows not and knows not that they know not is foolish. Disregard them. A person who knows not and knows that they know not is simple. Teach them. A person who knows not and believes that they know is dangerous. Avoid them. A person who knows and knows not that they know is asleep. Awaken them. A person who knows and knows that they know is wise. Follow them. All of these persons reside in you. Know thyself, and may Ma'at be true. A modern adaptation to an ancient ancestral proverb. So with that being said, man, I'm gonna leave this thing with this dolphin one more good time, so we can get some from our sea family, because we're gonna know thyself. Out of this thing, man. So I definitely appreciate both of y'all for coming through and doing what y'all do. This was amazing, as I knew it would be. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next time, man, so we can continue to do what we do, man. So tribe, I appreciate all y'all. Those who made it to the earlier shows, man, I appreciate y'all for rocking with us on this marathon. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle the Great, man, because the marathon does continue through us, and we're going to continue to do this. Man. Now that we stand about it, we fall, it ain't over till we win. And we're going to lead us with our C family until we meet again. With that, I'm Marisha Bemi. Appreciate, love all y'all. We'll see y'all in the next episode, family. We out. Peace.
All right, love y'all, family. Peace.
This never happens. Oh my gosh.
It happens in these Ashe streets. All right, family. We'll see y'all. We out. Peace. Odabo.
Odabo.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé ṣàpò ìyàpọ̀ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo ṣe ní gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́. Forsake not your ancestors and praise your